We live in a paradox. Never before have we been so connected, and never before have we felt so lost. You produce, you reply to messages, you post smiling photos. But deep inside, there's a silence that screams. A fatigue no rest can heal. An emptiness you can't explain. This is not weakness. It is clarity. And Camus, the philosopher of the absurd, offers us a way through this void. Not with illusions, but with revolt, with presence, with freedom. But what if this feeling of being lost is not a failure, but the first sign of awakening? In the ruins of the 20th century, Albert Camus asked the question no one dared to face. Is life still worth living? Wars, concentration camps, atomic bombs. All the promises of progress had collapsed into dust. And in the middle of that silence, Camus found a truth that still haunts us. The absurd is born from a collision, our desperate hunger for meaning, against the mute indifference of the universe. We cry out for order, and the world replies with silence. We demand answers, and the only response is emptiness. But today, the absurd is no longer just in wars or ruins. It hides in the office worker who scrolls at midnight, unable to sleep. It hides in the student who wonders why study if the future collapses every year. It hides in the young who has access to everything, and yet feels that everything is missing. This is the absurd of our age. Not a scream of tragedy, but a silent erosion. And yet Camus tells us, from this silence, a new path can be born. First law, the absurd is inevitable. To deny it is to blind yourself. To face it is the beginning of lucidity. Camus shows us that the absurd is not an accident of history, but a permanent tension. Our hunger for meaning against the world's indifference. We cannot erase it. We can only confront it. Camus shows us that the absurd is not an accident of history, but a permanent tension. Our hunger for meaning against the world's indifference. We cannot erase it. We can only confront it. Today, the absurd is in the endless scrolling, in the shallow conversations, in the exhaustion of performing happiness. We may have all the answers online, but the silence of existence remains intact. Stop running from the absurd. Recognize it. The feeling of emptiness is not a mistake. It is the starting point. Second law. In the face of the absurd, there are only two paths. Despair or revolt. Despair is resignation. Revolt is presence. Despair kills you while alive. Revolt makes you alive in spite of death. In the myth of Sisyphus, Camus imagines the condemned man pushing his stone endlessly. But instead of collapsing in despair, Sisyphus revolts. He accepts his fate and still walks, still breathes, still affirms life. Every time you wake up and open your phone to escape yourself, you choose despair. Every time you pause, breathe, and face the silence, you choose revolt. Ask yourself daily, am I moving mechanically or am I awake? The answer defines if you are living or only existing. Third law, slowing down is rebellion. In a world that glorifies speed, presence becomes subversion. By choosing silence, by choosing to live directly, you are already revolting against the absurd. Camus wrote that to feel the sun on the skin, to touch the sea, to experience reality without filters is a radical act, because it tears you away from the machine and brings you back to life. In a culture that monetizes distraction, a walk without headphones, a meal without screens, or a pause of 3 minutes in silence is more revolutionary than a protest. Choose one daily ritual of presence. 3 minutes under the sun. 15 minutes without screens. 3 lines in a diary about what felt real today. This is not therapy. This is revolt. Until now, we have laid the foundations of revolt. You have seen that the absurd cannot be denied, that you must choose between despair or revolt, and that presence itself is rebellion. But these are only the defenses, the pillars of survival. Now we move into dangerous territory. The advanced tactics, subtle, silent, but deeply transformative. Not everyone is ready for them. But if you are, they will change the way you face the void. First tactic, accepting the absurd is not resignation, it is liberation. Camus teaches that when we stop demanding a meaning from life, we free ourselves from the greatest prison, the illusion that existence owes us something. In the myth of Sisyphus, Sisyphus finds freedom in the very act of pushing the stone. He is condemned, yes, but he is also untouchable, because he accepts the absurd completely. No God, no master, no promise can control him anymore. Today, this freedom is born when you stop comparing yourself, stop seeking validation, and begin to live without needing to prove. In that moment, the chains of society break. Whenever you feel paralyzed by expectations, repeat, "Life owes me nothing." And that is why everything I live is precious. Second tactic. Revolt is not only presence. Revolt is creation. Camus shows that if life has no given meaning, it is up to us to create meaning through action, art, relationships, not as illusions, but as acts of defiance against nothingness. Camus himself embodied this. Instead of surrendering to nihilism, he wrote novels, plays, and essays that gave form to his revolt. He turned anguish into creation, silence into voice. In an era of distraction, to create, whether a drawing, a business, a gesture of love, is to resist. Because creation is the opposite of passivity. Choose one act of creation every week. A page written, a song played, a small project advanced. Creation is how revolt becomes visible. Third tactic, true revolt lives only in the now. For Camus, the past is gone. The future is uncertain. To insist on guarantees is to live in illusion. Presence is the only terrain of revolt. Think of the gladiator entering the arena. He does not know if he will live tomorrow. But in that moment, his presence is absolute. This intensity, Camus says, can be lived by all of us. Instead of drowning in plans and anxieties, choose radical attention. In a conversation, be entirely there. In silence, feel entirely. In work, commit entirely. That is revolt. Train radical presence. Once a day, whatever you do, walking, eating, speaking, do only that, with total intensity. That is how revolt becomes a way of life. Today, we walked through Camus's map of existence. We saw that the absurd is inevitable, that despair kills, but revolt awakens, that slowing down, creating, and embracing the now are not trivial acts, but radical forms of resistance. Camus does not offer comfort. He offers a sword. This knowledge is a double-edged blade. It can liberate you or consume you. The choice is yours. Use it not to escape reality, but to inhabit it. Not to manipulate, but to protect. Not to dominate others, but to become whole in yourself. Remember, feeling lost is not the end. It is the beginning, because only those who face the void can finally live. Share in the comments. Which of these tactics spoke most to you? Subscribe to Coke Mindset and join us in unveiling the dangerous knowledge of philosophy and dark psychology. And if this content resonated, your like is the signal that this revolt is alive.